Hello and welcome, everyone. My name's Hayley and I'm the partner manager here at Easy Agile. I would like to thank you all so much for jumping on the line tonight or whatever time it is where you are. It's so wonderful to see so many people joining us and to hear about this great topic with two very expert and fantastic speakers. So I just wanted to introduce Easy Agile, of course, which is where I'm from. Easy Agile is based here in Wollongong, Australia, and we create apps for Atlassian Jira. Our apps that you may have seen in the marketplace include user story maps, roadmaps, programs, and personas. And we're really proud that the products have continued to grow and are quite successful today. And a lot of it's thanks to partners such as Adaptavist, who we have on the line. Before we kick into tonight and also introducing our speakers, I just wanted to say an acknowledgement of country, which is a really important element of our events here at Easy Agile. Easy Agile would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we broadcast to you tonight, the people of the Darua-speaking country. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to welcome any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, or First Nations person on the call tonight. As I said, it's a really important aspect and I would like to pay acknowledgement of country. So now I'd like to introduce and also, of course, to thank our guest organisation with us tonight. Adaptavists help organisations transform to continuous change, being their business as usual. They do this by supplying technology, providing advice, and delivering change through modern, iterative approaches to develop, deployment, and application lifecycle management. Now I'd also like to introduce our speakers, and hopefully I don't stumble across any of these words. Riz Hassan is the consulting lead at Adaptavist. Riz works with agile teams and enterprise organisations to strategize, design, and ultimately deliver on complex change management projects around technology and process. Riz believes that the right attitude and approach to adopting new technology and continuous improvement and learning is key to organisational success and productivity. Thanks, Riz, for being on the call tonight. William Rajesh is our second speaker and is the managing consultant at Adaptavist. He has a proven track record of leading and defining transformational initiatives across all ALM areas over the last 20 years. He is diversely skilled across business and software process design and modelling, lean agile transformations, portfolio, program, project and team management, solutions architecture, business analysis and requirements management, technology implementations, and software product developments. As you can hear from our two guest speakers or their introductions, it's really wonderful to have them, and we're in safe hands and in expert hands tonight. And now on to our topic. We all know, or hopefully by the end of tonight, we'll all know that SAFE all starts with the Agile team. Agile teams fuel the enterprise and are at the centre of an organisation's success. But what does a successful, high-performing Agile team actually look like? How do you know if your Agile team is being Agile and not just doing Agile? This webinar we'll take a deep dive into the SAFE Agile teams with partners Adaptavist and Riz and William leading us through that tonight. It's so wonderful to have them here. Hopefully at the end of the webinar tonight, you'll take away a few fundamental lessons, and that is the fundamentals of SAFE and also the roles that you need in Agile teams and how to organise these or not to organise these. We're going to go through that too. And you're also going to come away with how to identify the pitfalls that Agile teams might come across and how to drive high performance and avoid these pitfalls too. So we're going to discuss all of this in probably the next 30 minutes. So don't leave us. Please stay on the line. And now I'm going to just move over to a screen where you can see all three of us at once. Okay. Thanks. Thank you so much for being with us again, William and Riz. It's really wonderful to see you. I guess I wanted to start the conversation around the basics of the scaled agile framework or SAFe and having a look at agile teams again. And I know we talked about this recently, but just to expand on that a little bit, Riz, in your opinion, what is an agile team?
An agile team to me is a group of individuals who collectively have some higher initiative that they're trying to accomplish. They're kind of chasing after either a defined or an undefined target, right? But they're mostly a team that works well together. I think when we talk about an agile team and team dynamics in general, when people talk about agile teams and what that word implies is that they're a mature team, meaning that they work together and they know how to work together, I think, from a people point of view, and are able to deliver on something greater than what one individual contributor can contribute.
So it sounds like there's an element of, I guess, cohesiveness. So, that's there's that thing around forming, norming, storming, and then you become a team. Is an agile team from the get-go as soon as they come together, or do they only become an agile team a little bit later?
I think that's an interesting question because, there's no definitive answer, right, to something like that, right? But, in my experience, when we're working with organizations that are operating in an agile fashion, and I would say Adaptavist is a group of people who do that, is an agile team is a team that gets put together based on a need, right? So when that happens, it could be it could be team members who have worked together for a long time or worked together for maybe a short amount of time, and there's new team members always coming in. So there's almost like a spectrum of what that team kind of would look like in terms of its kind of maturity and everything. So even when a team is just being formed, you could almost call it an agile team, and then you develop into a higher performing agile team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
There's definitely a sense of the execution of the team can be something we would label as agile, and sometimes you hear the term, being agile. So you definitely want to be an agile team, but often it's in that storming phase. It's in that forming phase. It's not just the norming that you say, okay, now you're agile, because often I think that the real test of an agile team is when a challenge comes along, and how's the team able to respond to whatever is coming at it, so that it still tries to stay on its course of its original goal, its original sprint goal, its original intention for a PI, let's say they're part of a scaled organization. I think that ultimately really is the real test of an agile team. How well does it do through change in direction, change in strategy, change in because ultimately that's what's going to measure how can the team organize around itself in terms of to meet its goals, and without losing what was the original intent, right? And that to me is a real measure of agile, of the real litmus test of an agile team. So yeah, you can be agile from the very beginning, even though you're still trying to okay, what do we do with this? How do we actually achieve this? How do we set the direction? The ability for the team to support each other and collaborate with each other and align to the goal and all that are wonderful ways to really measure agile per se, I would say.
And William, in your mind, when we think about agile teams and creating them for success and putting them under pressure, is there an ideal size of the agile team that they're going to be best equipped to deal with those tests?
So typically, we always say you can count them in your hands, right? So you so that's why we always look for that 10 or so number. it's the good size of a pot, especially because it allows for the one-on-one collaboration. It allows for the short meetings so that everybody can have their turn. It allows for the kind of the bond development, right? You want a strong team. You want teams that really know each other and can support each other. And in the small numbers, that is definitely possible. As those numbers grow, then the investment in building that and maintaining that and so forth just becomes that much harder. So yeah, we typically, I always say, like, yeah, you can count them in your both hands. So 10 or so, right? Really small, it's hard to get the collaboration. So when you have teams of 2, it's really difficult. You want something a little bigger. And when you get to 20, then you really begin to kind of, there's a lot of time just kind of in meeting time and not so much collaboration time, I would say.
Yeah, less agile, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Riz, what about some of the core roles within the team? I know that we hear a lot about different roles, but what are some of the core ones in your experience, and what are they, or should they be responsible for?
So I'm going to give a very consulting answer and say that depends on what the team is doing, right? Are they a development team? Are they a business team, right? So, I mean, roles among a team, there's kind of some standards that we kind of have already when we understand Agile at its core. People think stand-ups, people think Scrum Masters, product owners, developers, things like that. And there are elements of those roles which always make sense with an Agile team. So someone who can kind of facilitate a discussion, who can kind of bring everyone into some sort of alignment on what are the goals today, what are the goals tomorrow, what are the goals next week. Someone who's making decisions on how to move technically, right? How to move across other teams, right? So, and those roles I found best not as assigned to certain individuals, but if there is the luxury of a team that is growing into each other, is find out what people are good at, and they will just kind of naturally gravitate towards that role, right? So folks, for example, who are very timeline focused, right? They almost come up as the Scrum Master of sorts of the team because they keep everyone track. They know how to communicate. They're very direct. And then you have people who are more, say, on the engineering side, who like to go out and solve problems, right? So those people always typically kind of present themselves kind of naturally. But it's understanding that cross-functional need of what an Agile team should be, right? Is they should be able to be given a rather challenging, sometimes, most of the time, ambiguous task, right? And figure out how to execute it, right?
That's interesting to think about, like people coming into their own and that opportunity. I never thought of that. Like, you often go into a team and you have an assigned role. You're the product manager or you're the product marketing manager, and that's how it works. So yeah, that's, I guess, in that forming, norming, storming phase, it would be interesting to see that roles come out like that naturally or organically.
Good. It reminds me a little of the old for anybody, like the old Mission Impossible episodes, where at the beginning you were given the mission and then they would assemble the team, and then it was based upon the skills and expertise of the members that would determine who would come onto the team. So yeah, that sense of like there are certain needs, and then people try to kind of fulfill those needs by the team. I think it's very important to allow that flexibility, and then sometimes also to rotate some of that responsibility, right? So you're not kind of tied into it's so and so that does this, but if other people want to also take an opportunity to exercise in that role, to rotate some of that. In particular, I know that Scrum Master is one that often people sort of talk about, like allowing Scrum Masters to be on a rotating basis, which I think is really a good sign of a mature team where you have different people that can play that role as necessary if somebody's out on vacation or things like that, for example.
Yeah. I was actually, this is actually making me think about a movie I saw recently, which kind of fits this use case, Ocean's 11, right, where you really are bringing a group of people together to do a pretty big task, right? I mean, in this case, I think they were robbing a casino or something, right? But every person knew what their contribution was, and they were good at their roles, right? And if anything happened, if a conflict were to arise, they were able to kind of fix it on their own, kind of self-contained. Yeah. So that just made me think of that kind of aside, but I think and that's about the size of an Agile team, right? I guess around 10.
11.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a little bit too big.
Yeah, one thing that it's just to make sure that we're not confusing there. We don't necessarily want to assemble the Agile team for the program. We want these teams to be long lasting. So even in the case of the Ocean 11, the team came together, but they all knew each other already, right? So they were just kind of doing their own thing. So that idea of really, creating norming teams, right? We don't want to be always in that forming or storming phase. We want to have norming teams that know each other, can support each other, know how to collaborate with each other. That's ultimately what we're striving for. So it's not that we want to disassemble teams when the mission is gone. They just kind of go off, like in the movies they go off, but in reality, in this case, we want those teams to be long lasting. Assignment after assignment, basically. I don't want to call it projects, but at least assignments after assignments.
I love how we bring Agile Ocean's 11 into that. What a good movie! It's a bit old if you've just seen it, Riz. You're a bit behind there. So talking about methods and knowing which one is right, William, what's your take? I mean, how does a team know whether they should be operating in a Scrum or a Kanban method, and is there one answer? Is it as black and white as is that?
That's sort of an interesting question, because I know often people equate Agile and Scrum as they're the same, and in some ways, they are, but they're not equal. So some teams that often we say it's the nature of the work and how the teams operate. So if teams can create a cadence of planning and delivering on a particular cadence, then that definitely would be a really good pattern for a Scrum-like pattern to emerge, where they could create what's called the sprints to kind of plan out for the work for the next length of time of the sprint, which typically is 2 weeks, but that's also not necessarily a fixed rule that has to be that. And then deliver in that period and collaborate on a daily basis to achieve that sprint set of goals. Kanban teams, on the other hand, tend to be a lot more fluid in terms of the influx of work and the delivery of work. But the thing that you're always still looking for, like some of the things we talked about, like being able to collaborate literally on a daily basis, being able to have someone that helps orchestrate and organize, having someone that kind of has responsibility for where is the team going, are we in line with the business value we're trying to deliver, and so forth. Those I think we want to preserve regardless of whether you're more of a Scrum pattern or a Kanban pattern. And I think another thing where you see some variability is often typically from a Scrum perspective, it's like once something goes into the sprint, into the iteration of the Scrum, it's in the works and it will get done when it gets done at the other end. Often Kanban teams tend to need a lot more scrutiny day to day. What's happening? Did this get checked in? Does it get tested and so forth? So sometimes you see a difference even from a tooling perspective in terms of the workflows that those two teams have to follow, just because of the need to track. The influx of work is much more ongoing for Kanban. So you need to track the influx of work and its progress through that workflow a lot more detailed than typically it's done with a Scrum team, let's say. Yeah. But either one of those can follow Agile, but that pattern of if you can commit to a plan for the next 2 weeks, then Scrum is a great place a great way to get started.
Yes. Okay. Great. I guess now thinking about like some of the characteristics of success and failure of these safe agile teams, and agile teams are cross-functional, as you mentioned before, Riz. We were having a chat about that, but getting technical and business teams aligned, I guess, can be tricky. In your experience, what are some of the key ingredients that help cross-functional teams? I know we've often, we have cross-functional teams here at Easy Agile, and it's sometimes a little bit of a struggle to get your marketing person, your IT person, your product manager all on the same page. So how does that work, Riz? How have you seen successes in that realm?
Yeah, so I'll point out kind of two examples that pop to mind. One is an understanding of the bigger picture, right? And kind of what the goal is and the why. I think that's is why, not really the how or what, but the why of why we're working together, right? That tends to dissolve some of the lines that kind of we can create between like a cross-functional team, like you said, someone from finance or HR or IT or whatever, right? Because usually at organizations, they report into different lines, right? It's that part of the business or this team or that team. And it could be seen as there could be conflict there, right? Especially if these people have never worked together, right? So forcing a team of people together who don't know each other, and not that they don't need to know each other before becoming a team, but that has to become something that they're motivated to do in order to kind of see success at a cross-functional level, right? And that really has to come from people understanding why things are the right thing to do. And the second, I think, ingredient that is important for success, I'd say, is folks who can understand the business language and the technical language, who can almost kind of play like a translation exercise between the two groups, because that's typically where some of the friction is, right? And being able to talk to folks who have more of like an engineering problem-solving mindset versus folks who are more thinking at the business level and the business priority level.
One example actually that comes to mind on that is actually here at Adaptavist. Typically, so Riz and I work out of the consulting, the professional service organization part of the company, but we often need to interact with our marketing folks, and they typically come to us like, hey, I need to do this, right? Can you help me with this? We want to put a webinar together. Can you help me with that, right? And that is not something that's definitely where we see a lot of this cross-functional collaboration, because it typically is like they may have a vision of something they want to get done, but they cannot, they don't know how to get that done. They don't have the ability to provide and so forth. So they need us to help with that. And very similar, like we would love to have all the great things that Adaptavists can do be out there, but we're not marketing people. We don't know how to do that. So we need them to help us. So that definitely is an interesting example of like you're saying, that kind of business and technical language coming together. Because typically at Adaptavist, whenever we have this kind of initiatives, it is very much like Riz wants to do this, and and the marketing person, hey Riz, can you help me? And we just go in and do it. And that is the model that works for us. It is like we're not told you must do this, or it's not something that we're assigned to ever. It's something that we all typically want to participate and support, and it requires that kind of back and forth between the consultant side and the marketing side to get it done. And then and time and time again, that is how we work with some of the other. In particular, I know the marketing team comes strong in terms of that. The other teams we work with like that on a cross-functional basis, but definitely with the marketing team, it's very much like that. That's our model.
Yeah, I guess understanding, that purpose and that why, but also that motivating factor of, you have a team there that you need to support as well in some situations can help cross-functional teams come together a bit better. So where can cross-functional teams go wrong? William, what do you think? I mean, we talked a lot about success just then, what's going to help them set up for success, but where are they going to fail?
Often is like the whole point to me behind cross-functional is that the lines of responsibility are blurry on purpose, right? Because that's what cross-functional is about. Like, you need help. If I think I can help you, I come in and help you. It doesn't really matter what my role is in the team. And I think where they go wrong is when those lines are not that blurry. And it's like, I do this piece and you do that piece. When you're done, let me know, hand it over, I'll take it over. That kind of interaction between teams. And you can hear it sometimes in organizations that are starting, and you can feel where it's, even if people are put together to work on a team, in reality, what you see is that they're representing two different silos, and the silos are preserved, and they just happen to be in the same team, but they're still in a silo. That type of pattern is like death to a team, right? Because I don't work on that. So when you're done, let me know. I'll take over. Will destroy a team any day. So that's the thing we always kind of look out for. And as I said, the opposite is like, hey, I can help you with that, or I know a little bit of this, and let's sit down together and let's work on that. Those are the kinds of things that we look for as we're coaching teams. And we tend to like, how about you try this instead? That's what we always tend to kind of lead them towards instead. Yeah, so that sticking to your function, sticking to your gun, that just kind of preserves the silos that we're ultimately trying to break down.
That's it's interesting. I mean, I guess that people have, ownership over their role, and sometimes they don't want to give up or give some of that responsibility over to someone else, or they feel protective over their space. But it's interesting to let go of that, and then cross-functional teams might actually flourish a little bit more. So
yeah, there's a team that we're currently on a project that we're working on. We're trying to develop, and that is definitely one of the things we struggle with, almost like daily, I would say, because there are multiple teams being brought together. There's a whole new technology that we're ultimately trying to strive for. So our calls are often like, I want the old way. I want to preserve what we already have. Why do we need to change things? But then on the other side, we need to bring enough change, but still bring in, we want the team to come along, right? We don't want to introduce so much change that everybody gets left behind and then the team can't achieve its end goal either. So it is that balance, but that is very much part of in a sense, what each of these different cross-functional areas bring. And we're constantly doing calls trying to strive to kind of balance between the two, right? We want to bring the legacy technology and teams along, but at the same time still move forward towards the end goals and the new way of working that we want to develop. So it does create for some interesting scenarios there. But yeah, we're constantly looking out for like those silos and how do we break those down?
Yes, yeah. So, and I guess what are some of those ceremonies that are going to, or tools or methods that are going to help align technical and business members of these cross-functional teams? What are your thoughts, Riz?
So the ceremonies, I think, especially with something as kind of prescriptive as SAFe, I see them really as an exchange between groups that don't normally work together, right? So kind of the inputs that people get from those ceremonies are what I think is important. And for, I think, a cross-functional team that could be, like William said, operating in silos with their own leadership and everything, right? I think part of a really important kind of ceremony would be something where leadership actually gets involved and is able to communicate more so the why of like why this team is being put together and what the objective is, right? So in, say, for example, like a PI planning event, right? I mean, it's very prescriptive what SAFe says, right? There's a leadership, a kind of vision kind of put out there for the PI, right? And that's there by design and on purpose, right? So that higher level is kind of understood by everyone who's a part of that bigger initiative, and the teams can kind of break down that almost tribal mindset of this is my job, this is what I do, that's what you do, right? And then those handovers can become a little bit more fluid, because that's also where we see a lot of delays also when we work with a lot of software teams, right? And it's almost persistent all the time that usually delays happen between handoffs, right? When there is that mentality of I do this, then you do that. Not a let's do it together type thing.
I think that like one of the biggest things really, like if you look at like what's like almost underneath that whole PI planning in SAFe, is really to try to help the team to come into alignment, and to do it not just across the team members, but even across all the teams, and truly bring that alignment. And that I think is sort of the key thing. Like how do you get the teams aligned to the common set of goals? Like because once that alignment is there, then all the things that come in to try to the unforeseen things come in that may derail that goal, but that alignment is essentially what holds the teams together and what holds the plans together and so forth. Like we want to achieve whatever the business value and the goals are. That is really what helps at the program level, and then at the teams then go and do their own team level planning at the team level, make sure they're always aligned to those original goals. So those goals have to mean something to everybody, and then essentially buy into that. Right? And I think that to me is really the ultimate value of PI planning is that it's an opportunity for the teams to align on a common set of goals, and to dispute or make sure that the goals are what once people can all sign up for and can achieve. Like that's really the thing we're looking out of that planning event.
Yeah, and I guess so it sounds like making sure that everyone can align under a goal and a why and a purpose is really everything else sort of falls into place after that happens, and seems to run a bit more fluidly or seamlessly. So, and I guess one last question, like marketing teams and other teams, like non-technical teams, HR teams, for instance, I guess they're not inclined to think in an agile way or work in an agile way. But what are some of the ways that they can successfully apply agile ways of thinking into those non-technical teams? William, what are your thoughts, and do you have any examples?
Well, I think that some of the things we've been talking about, right? So, for example, someone to orchestrate day to day what you are trying to achieve, someone that keeps after, what value are you delivering to the organization, right? And are you aligned to the work along with the other teams that you may be working along with, right? Those are some very basic principles that, in some ways, they're not technical things. They're not software development things. These are things that like anybody should we should be aligned. We should make sure that what we're doing has meaning to the organization and so forth. So I think sticking to some of those basic principles, which is ultimately what being agile is, as opposed to just doing agile. That's why I think those practices apply across the board to anyone. And then that's when you then like the sprints and the stories, all the things. That's when you get into all the tech jargon of Scrum in particular. But ultimately, agile, that's just an instantiation of agile, right? That's really agile is just Scrum is just a way to put some approach to that framework of alignment, business value, self-organization, and that's what you want to have. And any team, any team can adopt that, and any team can benefit from practices like that, I would say. And I think that's sort of often that's the thing sometimes gets lost, because people say, well, we don't do stories, we don't do sprints. So, yeah, no, but that's not really what it's about. It's about alignment. It's about value delivery. That's what it's really about, right? The Scrum is just a way of doing it. Doesn't really matter ultimately. You call it something else, as long as you can iterate and come together and so forth. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and I guess we started off talking about those foundational things of SAFe and agile teams, and we did. It sounds like if you get those foundational things right, alignment will happen, and the other getting in the weeds, that will become, I guess, a bit more easy. So yeah, Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Look, I learned a lot. I learned a lot to take back to our cross-functional team and our agile teams here at Easy Agile, and looking forward to hoping that this helps other people as well. So, thank you so much. Is there any final thoughts or comments that you wanted to leave us with before we press stop on the record?
I think I would just say doing it, right? Often the way teams become agile is just by doing it. Often, let's say, quote unquote, doing it not so right or doing it wrong per se, but that the commitment to just practicing in that way is ultimately what the sort of the differentiation between some organizations and others. Like some organizations just are doing it, trying it, and continuing to evolve and committing to that that approach. So definitely, yes. Just if you haven't started, just get started. That's often the biggest hurdle.